Is there a president in this room? Oh, there we're all here. That's it.
Yeah, all three of us.
Go ahead and sign in. Well, it's not really all three of you. Look in the camera. They're all here too. So who am I looking at so far? I can see Post. I can see Tahoka. Can you guys hear me? Wave your hands if you can hear me. Come on, act like you're live. Tahoka? Earth calling Tahoka. Can you hear me? What else am I looking at? I'm looking at Post. I'm looking at Hale Center. Hale Center, wave your hands. Welcome. Long time no see. We haven't had anybody from Hale Center for quite a while. So, probably this class is going to be a little bit of show and tell, and we'll get around to actually studying history. If I were you, I'd sit over there so you can see that. Can you see it all right? I don't want to get in your way. Let's see if we can show you what we've got in here. I don't know if it'll work or not. Come on, machine. I'm not going to mess with it. I can turn on the student camera so they can see you guys. Let's give it another minute. So I've got Post, Tahoka, I'm trying to think. Hale Center, nobody's football team won this weekend. Hale Center, you guys didn't win, did you? You didn't win on Friday. Post, we won't even talk about Post. Coach in Tahoka. I see you hiding there. Would you do me a favor and send me, I'll put up my email for everybody. If anyone's having connectivity issues, let me see if I can find one. I usually write down what my name is, who I am, so I can remember who I am. Somewhere in here I probably have a set of notes, but I don't have the name of the notes. Tahoka, can you guys work your microphones? Do you know how? Somebody push the button and say hello.
Hello.
It's right. There you go. Push it down and say hello. Okay, I can't hear you. That means the master microphone must be turned off in the front of the room. Coach is carefully hiding from the camera. He doesn't want to be seen. We'll work on that. It's supposed to be interactive TV so that you guys can ask questions. So we need the mics to work. We'll get it going.
Can you hear Hale Center?
I can hear Hale Center loud and clear. That's good. How about Post? Can you guys work the mic? Come on, get brave. See if it works.
Maybe.
Yeah, it does work. Outstanding. Any football players in Post?
No.
Not in the class? I can't believe it. Usually I have football players. The ones who haven't had their bells rung too loud so they can't think. Okay. We're missing one school. We're missing somebody from, I think we have somebody from Lasbury that's supposed to be with us. Hey, Brooke, I don't have Lasbury. Okay, thank you very much. Did you see in the note I sent to Amy about the linking of classes? Well, she may not want to come back after the note I sent. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, let's get started with this game. Have any of you, I don't know about Nahoka because you kind of got registered a little bit late. How many of you have seen the little blurb I sent out in the emails? Did y'all see it? Did you, in this room everybody did. How about you, Hale Center? Did you guys see it? Come on, get brave, speak. Can't hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, did anybody watch the video? No. Or you-
I clicked.
Okay.
No, I don't think they did.
Okay, well, it's there to watch, take a look at it, but it's gonna be a little repetitive now because I'm gonna kinda tell you the same thing all over again. So try not to fall asleep. Basically, I'm gonna be your guide for about the next 15 weeks or so. For you out there in dual credit land, this is a change in status for you. You're not high school kids as far as this class is concerned. So you'll be treated like adults. You're protected under federal law like adult students under FERPA. I can't tell your mommy and daddy what you're doing in class. That really hurts, doesn't it? But on the other hand, I expect you to show the responsibility that I think the school expects out of you there. Anyway, we're going to work our way through events in Europe, Africa, the Americas, that eventually resulted in our democratic republic. The time period that we're really talking about is probably from the end of the 1400s or the beginning of the 1500s on up until the Civil War and just after the Civil War. We'll look at social economic conditions, technological developments, and then we'll start focusing in on the British colonies. And we'll look a little bit at the Spanish colonies in the beginning, and a little bit later on we'll look at some of the Spanish colonies such as Santa Fe a little bit later on. But the main focus will be on the British colonies as they develop, and then when they go into rebellion against the British Crown, win their independence, and we'll follow about the first 70 years of the Republic up to the Civil War and the conclusion of the Civil War and our efforts to kind of try and rebuild after the Civil War. And that'll be that. For our text, we're going to use a book called OpenStax. Anybody looked at OpenStax yet? No? Okay, let me show you a couple of things. Let's see if I've got some. I may or may not. Okay, on Blackboard, in your syllabus, there's an address, a URL. Everybody knows what a URL is, right? You guys know more about this than me. I'm old. Go into that URL and just kind of look around in there. It will open you, it will take you straight to the book, to the table of contents and the introduction in the book. And kind of nose around and look at it. It's interesting. Some of you may not find a history book interesting, but it's interesting. It's well put together. It's well put together. We're going to kind of use that. I tend to get away from it the further along we go, but we'll balance me against that book and see how that works out. Just for this week, I want you to go into Blackboard. Let me just go into Blackboard and show you Blackboard here. See if I can get online. See if the system works this time. It's incredible, actually. Usually on the first day the system doesn't work at all. Speak to me, baby. Maybe I spoke too soon. Let me put this up so you can see what I'm doing. First thing I did was I put in a URL here. It's www.southplainscollege.edu. Click on that, baby. As soon as this computer, and there it is. That's what you're going to see, South Plains College. The first time you go into Blackboard, you can hit that login thing, and there'll be a drop down, and it says Blackboard. See where the arrow is? It's kind of small. Click on Blackboard. Log in. Everybody's got a ID, student ID, and okay. Yeah, I can do the Wi-Fi for you after class, but.
Because I have no idea.
What?
I have no idea.
Yeah. No, right. Oh, that's not right. There we go. That's kind of like what you're going to get when you log on. In the middle column there, it's got a list of your classes. None of you have that many classes, so don't freak out. That's the load that I bear. But let's look at our class in specific. You click on the class, and this is what's going to pop up. Over on the left-hand side, you're going to have a course menu with a bunch of buttons. Don't tell the administration of SVC that I've got all those buttons there because they hate buttons. But I think they look a lot better than what they've got, so that's what we're going to use. You'll notice a bunch of things. Home, that's where you are, right there in there. Help, I've never used it, it's confusing, so skip it. And the first thing you're going to see after that is syllabus. You click on that, you've got kind of some down and dirty rules that I put up there that are in the syllabus. But if you click on the attachment there, it says Master Syllabus for History 1301. That will be the full syllabus for this class. If you click onto that, the very beginning of it, there is a tremendous amount of hoo-ha. That's the nicest word I can use for it. It's in blue ink. Skip it. Get to my part. And right there, on the first page of the black ink, you've got the OpenStax URL. Okay, two things. One thing you should have already done, as soon as you got into Blackboard, bookmark it. Everybody knows how to bookmark. Bookmark it. Then, when you use this URL for OpenStax, bookmark that baby too. Click on it first, and then bookmark it. That way you don't have to go all through all this log on to SVC and all that other stuff. You can go directly to where you want to go. Now I'm gonna have to copy this thing because they erased all the stuff I had on the computer. I'm gonna do that. Okay, let's try it out. Hello. We'll try one more time. There it goes. Click on OpenStax. On this particular screen, the way the screen is right now, can't see the what are you doing to me? There's your table of contents over on the left-hand side, an OpenStax. Each this is the intro. You'll get a chapter outline at the beginning of the chapter. You just keep it next till you fall asleep or whatever. This is what the beginning chapter looks like. I think a little bit later in the week, I'll have you read the first couple of chapters. At the end of the chapters, it has things like, if there's some strange vocabulary it's introduced or something like that, it'll have that. It'll also maybe have some review questions. Every once in a while, teachers being lazy the way they are sometimes. Oh no, teachers aren't lazy. You'll see some of the questions that are in the review at the end of the chapters there pop up on my quizzes. It's much easier than thinking about all the wrong answers that I have to put up, to do a multiple choice quiz. It's funny about multiple choice quizzes, when you write them, it's easy to write the correct answer, then you have to think up 3 other answers. That's where I always slow down. So you see some strange things in some of my other answers, strange names and what have you. So that's your syllabus. Right there on that page tells you probably what you need to know about that syllabus. At the end of the syllabus, though, there's a schedule of what we're going to do. It's just like a chart. And it talks about all 16 weeks, including the final week, which is exam week, where we don't have classes. Let's see what else. Let's look at notes and readings. This is where we're going to do most of our work. And this is kind of what it looks like. I'm sure the screen is really blurry. If any of you are following along online, it's a lot easier, but usually I divide this into units. It's kind of arbitrary. It's not weeks, it's just units. Sometimes a unit will last for a few days, and sometimes it'll last a week and a half or so. It's just a logical way so that you can remember where things are. For example, in this unit, the first thing I put on there is assignments for the unit. I suggest that you watch the introductory video. Take a look at the syllabus schedule. Choose a book for analysis. I'll talk about that in a minute. There's a big long list of books. We'll talk about that in a second. Then read the Unit 1 readings. If you look right below that, assignments, there's the Unit 1 readings. There's 3 of them. It says your second quiz will be based on this. It won't. Your first quiz will be based on it. I'll fix that. Down below that, you see Unit 1 lectures. That's just the material that I use in the class. If you need to go back and look at it, fine. If you don't want to ever look at it in your lifetime, fine. The only thing I really want you to look at is look at the readings. Usually they're short, and usually the readings are what I base the quiz on. Gee, they fixed the screen. I get to see myself now. I don't know what you guys out there can see, but hopefully it's the right thing. Okay. On the first day, who knows? I've got assignments for Unit 2, but we're not there yet. We'll get there fairly quickly. So you know how to get into Blackboard. Everybody knows that. If you have any problems with that, I think, did I send you an email? Well, you got an email, so you've got an email address for me, because somebody answered me. Ms. Bliss answered me here in this room. If you have any questions about anything, even the meaning of life, feel free. But I want you to do it inside Blackboard, okay? Don't do it on the regular email. Once we get things going, there's a button on there. I was showing all these buttons. There's a button called Message Center. If you do it on Message Center, I'm going to answer you that day. I might even answer you that hour. I'm an old man. I have no life. That way we have a record of our conversation. Okay? So, any questions at all, throw them at me. I've already got some. We haven't even started class yet, and I've already answered a few questions. The next little button, and sometimes on notes and readings I'll put up like something of the exam. For example, how to get ready for the exam, what you need to know, things like that. Keywords for the exam. We'll talk about exams later. Speaking of which, the next button down is exams and quizzes. It's totally empty. But I will put a quiz up. I'll put a quiz up today. Doesn't mean you have to do it today. It'll tell you when it's due in. The quizzes you do at home whenever you feel like it, as long as you meet the deadline. Gee, Mr. Hunt, I could cheat. I could look at my book. I could look at my notes. Go for it. Quizzes are worth 15% of your overall grade. Get a 100 on every one. Some of them might have a little bit of time limitation on them, so you have to understand where things are before you start the quiz. You can't start the quiz and then look it up in the book. It won't work, I promise you. Okay, that's exams and quizzes. We'll get into how we take the exams a little bit later. The quizzes, though, you can do at home. Next thing down there, there's an analytical essay button. If you click that button, it's got instructions on it in detail, and it's got a book list. Now, I wish you guys would kind of open the book list in every classroom. Somebody print out a copy. Somebody be the class secretary. Print out a copy, and everybody pick a book on that list. There's over 50 book titles, so no repetitions. First come, first serve. Don't fight over it. I don't want to see any blood or anything like that in the classroom. And then, by the end of the week, by Friday, without fail, get onto Message Center, hit that Message Center button, and say, Mr. Hunt, I'm doing this book. When you do that, you give me the title, I will send you 5 questions to kind of guide you to what you need to do. This is a book analysis, it's not a book report. So you can't get into book reports for sale and buy yourself a book report, because that's not what the analysis does. You're going to look at this book, and you're going to look at how the author gets his information, whether he's biased, who he's talking about, the scope of his discussion, and what's his point. You don't need to recite what he says in the book about what the story is or whatever, because I've read it before. I don't need to see it again. But we'll talk about that. The analytical essay is something we can work on. If you guys want to do like the first question and send it to me, I'll look at it and say, here's what you need to make this perfect. Just as with the quizzes, you should be able to get 100 on every one if you even kind of look at the notes and have them in front of you perhaps. when you take the quiz, you should get 100 on all those. That's 15% of your overall grade. The analytical essay, you can ask me questions about it ad infinitum, ad nauseum, forever, and get an A on that too. So now you've got up to 30% of your grade, you've got an A on. Now all you have to do is pass an exam now and then. So we're looking for everybody to get an A. I don't grade it on a curve. If everybody gets an A, fine with me. And if everybody gets something else that's not so nice, not my business. That's what you get. It's not what I give you. It's what you earn. You're being treated as adults now. And for those of you in front of me, the people out there are a little bit younger than you are. Okay? So you kind of have to get used to that. All right. And there's instructions on how to submit the thing. And you can play around with that later. And the way it's set up on the analytical essay, you can submit it 500 times. I don't care. I'm just going to give you the last grade you got. But if you want to try it out to see if you can submit, feel free. Anybody got questions so far? Hello, lads, buddy. You finally showed up, by the way. You're pretty lonely in that room. I don't know if the other schools can see. If you push your button and talk to me, I think the other classes can probably see you. Huh?
Tahoka saying something, but it's super quiet.
Tahoka, it's really, really quiet. You need to turn the volume up a little bit, maybe.
Yes, we are.
Try it again. You know, the region has promised us to bring you guys brand new equipment. I haven't seen it yet. Okay. Where are we? We're talking about the analytical essay. There's a button that says grades, get clicked on there. I don't guess I need to push on that because there's nothing in there yet. Then there's Message Center. Then there's a really neat thing, kind of down at the bottom of the pile, called Collaborate Ultra. Now, some classes do their whole class on Collaborate Ultra. But we do it on the old-fashioned ITV, which, if they can fix the volume and all that, it'll be great. I'm coming down to visit before long. We'll fix that thing if it takes my my Marine Corps screwdriver. That's a large hammer.
Our mic does not work.
What? Yeah. Okay. I know. I got the picture. Thank you. You can't hear me though, right? Wave your hands if you can hear my golden voice. I know you can hear me, Hale Center. I'm just talking to okay. Last buddy, you can hear me, right? You're all by yourself. Brave person, last buddy. Post, are you still awake? One person in the back moves. Everybody else looks like they're a statue. Move. Prove to us that you're alive.
We're alive.
Okay. Oh, there you go. That's nice to know. This is a participatory class. This is not a sit in the chair and hear this old man talk to you like a talking head. This is a class where I'm going to ask you questions. So get used to it, guys. And by the way, for all of those of you, I don't know if how many people in Tahoka and Post have an older brother or sister who's been in one of my classes? So you've heard about it, haven't you? Yeah, okay. You've been warned. Sometimes I show up at the school when you least expect it. Just walk into that room and you think you're going to sleep through another one of Mr. Hunt's lectures. And there he is at the door. If I like you, I bring Krispy Kremes. Oh, the people in the room are already complaining that I didn't bring any here. That's that will happen. And you guys, you can't eat Krispy Kremes, can you?
We're college kids, we can eat anything.
Yeah, well, I've got one living with me. I thought I got rid of all my children. My grandchildren are living with me now. Okay, let's click on Collaborate Ultra and see what it's got to show us. If you click on it, it's going to show you a screen like this. And if you look at the menu bars there and click on them, it has class sessions. Since we don't have a class in Collaborate Ultra, you probably won't see anything there, and recordings. If I do something on Collaborate Ultra for you and record it, you can click on that and the name and the recording will pop up. Now, let's just pretend, since there aren't any sessions, but let's just pretend that we're doing a session. Down under the word Create Session, I don't know if you have that word there or not, but down below there, you'll see the name of the session. And it sends you to what it calls a course room. You can go to the course room even if it's not a class session. Click on that, and there will be a little thing that pops up and it says, Join the course room. Click on that, and you get to see a spinning wheel. But eventually, it will tell you who else is in the course room at the time. You can talk to them if they're in there by turning on your microphone down at the bottom of the page. You can even see them if they're brave enough to turn the camera on. Some people feel that's an invasion of privacy, so they won't. Some people are just unbelievably shy. I had one class, I think it was Wellman Union, they went for about half a semester and I never saw them, and I thought it must be broken. And I went down to Wellman and they told me, no, we just have it turned off, we're shy. Anyway, the one thing, if you're participating in this, down in the right-hand corner, can you guys, anybody
Yeah, we're on it.
with us? There's a little kind of a pink thing that's supposedly an arrow. Go away. Yeah, on the session thing. And down there's a little bubble. And on that little bubble, there's Carissa Bliss just said hello. So, you can talk, you can chat. And I know I've noticed that a lot of students, Hale Center, your neighbors at Abernathy, they don't like to talk on the thing, but they love to chat on it. So while I'm lecturing, the chat's just going crazy, asking me questions. We won't be using it very much, unless, God forbid, we have COVID issues or something like that. Then we might switch over to using it, because you can do this from home, anywhere you can get online. Okay, let's get out of that mess. What's that? Well, I didn't mean to go quite that far. But that's about what we have on Blackboard. And that's what I've got on my PowerPoint. Now I use a lot of them, and you've got those in the unit lectures. You can look at the PowerPoint as much as you want, or as little as you want, as far as that goes. Sometimes I'll use them in class, and I'll use this one a little bit, but not as much as I usually do today. Now, if any of you read or looked at that textbook already, and I don't think many of you have, there are a couple words thrown around that they define in that textbook. One of them is something called globalism. Does anybody know what globalism is? Oh, I lost Tahoka. Oh, there's Tahoka. What did you do, Tahoka? You disappeared for a minute. Anybody know what globalism is? Front row of Hale Center there. Don't fall all the way asleep. You might fall off your chair. I don't complain about people sleeping in my class as long as they don't snore or fall off their chair. Okay, what is globalism? Let's see if I can make this thing switch over to my little handy dandy projector. They said it couldn't be done. It'll be upside down. Who knows what it'll look like? All right, projector, perform. There it is. The big question, what is globalism? Hello. They talk about it right at the beginning of the book. Out in, before we got into the latest series of riots and things like that, out in Portland and places like that, the big rioting cause was globalism. And people are out rioting against globalism. And I'm pretty sure that most of them didn't have any idea what globalism was, but it was a good chance to go out and see your friends and scream and yell in the streets. And the book definition of globalism and even the online definition of globalism probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But I found comments about globalism that do make sense. And at its core, globalism is a world which is characterized by networks of connections around the world. How about internet? Things like that. That span from continent to continent, country to country. The important thing to understand about globalism is it sort of ignores national borders. And the best example I can give you of what globalism is to talk about a company. Because sometimes big corporations, they don't care about countries, do they? They care about their corporation. Exxon, big oil company. In theory, we think they're an American company, but really they're a transnational company. And they would rather not hear from the government at all. Internet is another one. In theory, the internet, although some countries have figured out how to control it, in theory, the internet doesn't regard national borders at all. And a lot of people want to go back into their little shell and just, I'm an American, I only want to be here in America. Or, even better, let's see a show of hands. Not counting crossing the border of Mexico, how many of you have been out of the United States? Wow, there's some there. There's some in Hale Center. Nobody in Lasbuddy. Oh, good. Where have you been, Miss Lasbuddy?
Oh, good.
Miss Sanchez, where have you been? I can't hear you. Push the button. Hold it down while you're talking.
Here, Tahoka.
Hey, Tahoka, I can hear you. Oh my goodness. You have? Where have you been?
Pretty much every continent except for
Can you hear
Antarctica.
Tahoka?
Yeah, I can hear Tahoka. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear your voice. Maybe I'll record it so I can hear it. By the way, I'm having them record these morning classes just in case somebody gets sick. That's not an excuse to sleep through the class and then come back and look at the recording. But I'll put up the URLs of a place on YouTube where you can go and find all the classes that we've done. Okay? So we talked about globalism. I'll save imperialism for another time. We'll talk about that too. But let's look at some of the stuff we're studying. If any of you have questions, just to make sure I answer them, send them to me on Course Messenger. Send them to me as soon as you get a free moment to send a question. Send it to me now. I won't see it right now because I've got a different thing up on my computer. But in about 15 minutes when I walk out of this room, first thing I'll do is look at the computer and look for messages. So we can do that, and it's easier, and you're not playing with technology and all of that. So we started out talking about globalism, ever-increasing interconnectedness around the world. When did it start? We all think it's, well, the term is a pretty new term. But the notion of globalism, or the fact of globalism, isn't new at all. As soon as different people from different regions started doing trade with each other, as soon as people from Europe visited Asia overland, as soon as people in China got on their junks, and believe it or not, they did this, the Chinese were the first really big national explorers. They went on giant ships, which dwarfed the ships that the Europeans were using. They went as far as the eastern coast of Africa, up until about the year 1432, and then all of a sudden, the Emperor of China, was called Yongle at the time, just said, okay, that's enough. No more exploration. We will now look inward. And they stopped, just like that. They stopped exploring. And the next big explorers will be people that were exposed to the Chinese, and people from Europe had been going to China always early as, say, the year 600, but going overland. This contact, or this interest in doing trade with China, they're looking for things like spices, silk, porcelain, sugar, particularly silk. In fact, sometimes they called the routes over to China, they called it the Silk Road. It wasn't a single road, but it was the trails that went over, partially over water, but then over Central Asia. They were long trails, very difficult to travel. So you could say, if you're a businessman, high overhead, because there was a lot of risk involved. Never knew who you were going to meet on the way. And then all of a sudden, the interest in finding other ways to get to China exploded. Let's say, well, people have been traveling to the east since the Crusades back in the year 1095. But, and let's say about the 1300s or 1400s, a new empire is going to rise up. It's an Islamic empire called the Ottoman Empire. And slowly but surely, they are going to block the overland route. They don't turn it off, but they make it more difficult to go, or they make it more expensive to go. They're going to block off the Mediterranean Sea. They're going to block off some of the areas to the north. And suddenly, your Europeans, like the city-states of Venice and Genoa on the Italian peninsula, the north end of the Italian peninsula, they've got to find an alternative, because they're fabulously wealthy because of the trade they've had to the Orient. Now they're going to start looking for other ways to get there. And so things are going to change. And probably the first people to do this were the Portuguese. And they're going to go around Africa, and we're going to talk about them in more detail. They're going to go all the way around the tip of Africa, find their way into the Indian Ocean, move up the east coast of Africa, find their way to India, then find their way all around kind of the belly of South Asia, all the way up to China. And they're going to set up outposts and things like that along the coast of Africa. And the thing about it is, it's almost as bad as the Ottoman Empire blocking the route to China overland, because the Portuguese are going to say, hey, we got a monopoly on this. You can't stop at our gas stations. Of course, that's an anachronism. They didn't have gas stations. But my point being is, you can't stop off at their little places that they've fixed along the coast of Africa to stop off and resupply, get water and things like that. So the Spanish are looking for a different way to get there. And eventually, after they get done chasing the Moors out of Spain, Spain had been dominated by Islamic forces for about 800 years. In the late 1400s, they're going to finish driving the Moors, which was just a kind of a general term for all the Islamic forces from North Africa that were there. They're going to drive them off the peninsula, and then they're going to say, we want to go to China too, but the Portuguese are in the way here, and the Ottoman Empire is in the way there. How are we going to get there? And there's this fellow by the name of Cristobal Colon, or Christopher Columbus if you want, who says, I know how to get there. Now, he's been knocking on doors all over Europe because he's figured out, by the way, he was self-educated. And he's got a lot of ideas about the circumference of the world and all that, but he didn't learn math very well. And so he doesn't really have a good idea about how far around the world is. He thinks he knows. Sometimes, we think we know things we don't know. But he's trying to sell it to every king, anybody that's got money, sponsor me, I can get to China the other way. So that we don't have to go the way the Portuguese went. So we don't have to fight with the Ottoman Empire. And that's when he heads to the west, headed straight for China across the ocean, only he bumps into something that isn't China. He bumps into the Americas. And we'll talk about him a little bit more detail, but the whole point is that that's the beginning of transatlantic interest in the Americas. The Portuguese also bumped into the Americas, probably in the year 1000. Vikings had already reached the Americas.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
Settling or anything, they were interested in fishing or whatever. And there may have been even fishermen who reached South America and reached up in North America, Newfoundland. But we all know that fishermen don't tell people where they've been, right? Never tell anybody where your fishing hole is. So we consider the new people that go over there, say in the beginning of the 1500s, as the great explorers that went out into the unknown and found the Americas. What we're going to do next class, and we're not going to get into it very deeply now, is we're going to talk about when all of this starts. Let's say this exploded with Columbus's trip. You realize he never touched North America, never reached it. He set foot on one of his voyages right on the edge of South America. He explored islands in the Caribbean, probably touched foot in Central America, made 4 trips. He really believed that he'd reached the Indies, that he'd reached India or China or something. Therefore, the natives of that area, who didn't understand what they were talking about, started being called by the Europeans, started being called Indians. And nowadays, I don't know what the political correct term is. Native Americans, I don't like that term because they're no more native than you and me. They also came there from somewhere else. They just came a lot earlier. But they start calling them Indians, and then when I was a kid, it was American Indians, and then you differentiate.
Your conference is now over. Goodbye.
I think they're about to shut us off. It's a little bit early. See you next time. And I'll make sure they don't shut us off 4 minutes early. Okay. Let's quit there. Anybody got questions? How many of you have a class immediately after this one? Nobody? Let's walk past my office so you can see where it is, because there's a book list. I want you to get into that book list and look at it.
I have book list online, kind of stuff.
Okay, you go into the
Analytical essay.
yeah.
And then you click on it, and on our end, it just has the submission, it doesn't have the list.
Okay, I'll fix it.
So yeah.
I'll fix it. What I was going to say is, let's walk past my office. We'll just walk past it. And because for you guys,